Imagine, if you will, sitting down to your morning coffee, turning on your home computer to read the day's newspaper. Well, it's not as far-fetched as it may seem.
This is only the first step in newspapers by computer. Engineers now predict the day will come when we get all our newspapers and magazines by home computer, but that's a few years off. These editors are programming today's copy of the paper into that same Ohio computer. When the telephone connection between these two terminals is made, the newest form of electronic journalism lights up.
The philosophy of AI. It's no secret AI has taken the attention economy by storm. According to almost all metrics, corporations are bull rushing into becoming first in a race that will, in their mind, define technology for the rest of the foreseeable future. Business executives and tech entrepreneurs foaming at the mouth at new avenues of resource extraction and fantasy realms that they can play into. And in between the lines, perhaps some very enthusiastic people holistically looking to build upon a technological foundation that could benefit all. Thus far, for the past few years before the AI craze we are currently experiencing, we have seen computer software technology that is aiding in the coming standstill of computer hardware acceleration and the predicted coming decline of Moore's Law. The inefficiencies of the 40-year-long x86 architecture that has dominated computation for decades. But more recently, the rage has been chatbots that will complete code, write fairly convincing essays, to art programs that will create convincing stills. There's not only a crisis by way of capital investment, but what many feel is of the self. A crisis of meaning and how AI may reinterpret existing human function. There's so much here that it's practically impossible to list all the various human and sociological anxieties that are being thrusted onto the surface. I, as a mere mortal idiot, cannot think of all the ways we can philosophize or theorize this perceived dilemma. This field is rapidly evolving, it's changing, and it will continue to change. That said, amidst the complicated yet oversimplified rage, there are some small nuances here that I think are worth a video. So, let's roll into it. This is the philosophy of artificial intelligence. Okay, this video is going to be difficult. A difficulty almost by way of its simplicity. When we delve into AI, by proxy we are delving into extensions of the self, and all the subjectivity that's intertwined. I mean this literally. This part is key. And in order to continue, it needs to be established. There is no AI without us. Like everything around us, we are not truly alien to it. This seems a bit simplistic, so I guess pack up your bags and go home. But hold on a second, there is a little bit of important nuance here that I think is actually pretty important that gets glossed over, and I hope that will be the bulk of this video. But the point of AI being directly tied to us is incredibly important. We can't separate artificial intelligence from the type of sociological fear that we are experiencing today. It's not that we are creating some foreign intelligence capable of things unknown to us. To rip right into the thesis here, the philosophy of artificial intelligence, thus far, can only be constructed within the ethos of human fear and panic. So, let's delve into that. First is the human fear of self. I find there's a psychoanalytic element here that fits and holds a ton of weight. We're going to lean on Lacan here, within the vein of French psychoanalysis. We've done videos on Lacan and explained much of his developmental psychoanalysis before, so this won't be an open-ended lesson on it. If you want some more in-depth stuff on that, here are some links above. Yet, I hope to make sense of this when pertaining to AI, and our initial human origins. With those origins, fear, anxiety, in psychoanalytic terminology we can call lack, is at the heart of the human conundrum. In structural philosophy, a negation, we could call it. This is important. Lacan theorizes that through human development we hit something called the mirror stage, the development of I in language. This process is visualized by looking at yourself in the mirror. From here, the social coding begins. we develop this type of mirror image of ourselves that's often constructed by an ideal version, how society sees you, how you ought to be. As a child develops this through caregivers, middle-aged men and Gary Cooper, things in which symbolism, language, and ideology would impart on us to build ourselves up. Of course, this isn't really you. It can't be you. The only semblance of you is artificial. Yes, artificial. See where we are heading with all of this? What now do we define as a self? This is something that lends itself to a state of anxiety, which, to psychoanalysis, we're ultimately poking at the kernel of our existence. Which, again, given that being a lack, a void, nothingness. There's a bit of scholarly work around the intersection of psychoanalysis and AI, primarily spearheaded by, from what I've seen, Isabel Millar. In their text, The Psychoanalysis of A.I., they detail something in the beginning, which I love, by the way. That being a section beautifully worded, the stupidity of intelligence. So, as you can see, we're already off to a great start. But this section gets better and highlights this well.
The dictionary definition of intelligence, from the Latin intus, between, and legere, to choose, entails variously the ability to discern, make decisions, comprehend, to have skill, art, taste, and ultimately knowledge. But the term artificial, preceding intelligence, gives one the immediate impression that we have a sound definition of what real intelligence is. Further, the passage continues, human intelligence entails various interactions between different skills, for example, a combination and interaction of visual perception, motor skills, memory, speech, spatial reasoning, auditory processing may be utilized at any given moment. These skills are of course not all transparently understandable to the intelligent human utilizing them. This is the paradox at the heart of debates between neuroscience and philosophical accounts of consciousness, which start from fundamentally different premises on how we may talk about subjective phenomena.
In simple terminology, it doesn't matter how technically smart you are. According to the checklists of intelligence, there's no real awareness of itself. In a way, there's a heavy arrogance in assuming that the way we measure intelligence, or how those capabilities can even be theorized, can just be brushed under the table. Such arrogance, we've quite literally based our entire human existence on the concept of intelligence. You know, ultimately things that genocided entire areas and people because of it, subjugated thousands of species to extinction, all because they didn't fit this very arrogant criteria. But this is just the historical effect. This doesn't even contend with the present and our supposed meritocratic ideal of propping up society on the whims of what supposedly intelligent people have to offer. Anyhow, no wonder the concept of artificial intelligence invokes fear, from our inability to even have a modicum of meaning when pertaining to intelligence, to the concept of artificial, from artificial intelligence, forcing us to contend with the possibility that maybe this whole thing of self, of intelligence, me, you, identity, is a facade. And scary enough, a facade we don't control. That control and power is elsewhere. It's outside of us, if there even is an us. And where that control and power resides, how it functions, how we socially deal with fear, well, let's get into that. This is where we get to ideology. Oh yes, it wouldn't be an Epoch philosophy video without this annoying concept coming up. But we can't escape ideology. It's here whether you, or me, or anybody likes it or not. There are some ideological dynamics with how AI is developing, and how it thus far has been developed. But I see some inner workings here that are particularly interesting. So to start off, I am once again citing a plastic pills video. This dude really should pay me at this point, honest to God. Pills, pay me. Jokes aside, zombie ideology is video being the subject here. It's really one of his best and is royally underviewed. I actually couldn't find a source more ironically relevant to artificial intelligence. To those who have seen this video, they might be a tad confused. While I can't completely sum it up in a video, Pills details the use of zombies in film and media. A quick and crude summation of this video details the sociological imagery within film. Propagated art that produces value judgments for us. Heroes, villains, zombies, survival, order, and chaos. Things that emerge as accepted terror and instills those reactions appropriately within a given society. Mainly to those who zombies concern in real life, which, that being power. Zombies represent an organized body, infiltrators of sorts. In our realm, people like communists, immigrants, drug addicts, and workers that organize. In the film, these zombies seek to destroy the hero archetype, the Gary Coopers, the John Waynes of the world. Those are the posited heroes, the people with ordained authority. And most likely, if you're watching this video, you aren't one of them. You may hear in school, you can try, that if you work a little extra hard, put in that overtime, or here's a real good one, are smarter than others, you'll become the hero. Essentially, everything outside the vein that establish ideological guidelines that society operates within is what we want to escape. The simpleton invaders, the zombies. But as Pill's video concludes, zombies are powerful. Very, very powerful. And that's important. And ultimately, they don't want you to know that. So where does AI fall into this? Well, look at some of the more notable individuals who are fearful of AI. You might see where we are going with this. In many ways, AI is more zombified than the actual zombies portrayed in media. AI embodies a type of elastic collective consciousness of human input. Instead of a mass of individuals, people who have specific dispositions, AI is much more singular and thus efficient. In a certain way, that's terrifying to concentrated power. A terror by way not of its artifice, its separation from us, but how much of a hyper-efficient, superimposed ideal of us it really is. And here's the important thing. This is the kicker here. AI ultimately mirrors the type of ideal intelligence from the typical corporate pseudo-intellectual executive class, culture, people, whatever. The cohesive sameness of corporate structuring, workplace culture, and practices within postmodern late-stage capitalism. From the pages of thinkers like Frederick Jameson, since the advent of neoliberalism, capitalism has changed into something that doesn't operate on the advent of raw market competition of the past, but new inter-organizational cooperation. Materially, monopolistic practices of things like mergers, buying out competition, rather than merely destroying them. With newer corporate culture, people like Slavoj Žižek have coined this as a type of liberalized communism, something that takes the stringent, rigorous profit motives within business, but molds it within the veneer of communal organization. Why is AI a threat to this? Well, corporate practices in the 21st century are much more abstract. Your worth is that of your quote-unquote business acumen, your skill set, and supposed knowledge.
One of the miners in Rustenburg has lost his life. Yet another fatality. You have to decide, are you going to shut down the mine or continue business as usual? The situation is different, don't you think? Is she suited for this job? Can she do this?
I think that's an incredibly challenging question.
That's what we do, Jake. This is what we do. This is what we do.
Again, like the John Wayne, Gary Coopers in media, these idealisms serve as an ideological ideal that protects the existence of parasitic executives, people who contribute little by way of production, compared to, say, workers but rake in 100 times the pay. AI is a massive threat to this. The only thing that can save them from this is that these executives have the keys. We see anxieties around the prospect of AI eliminating jobs, and to some extent, this anxiety can be warranted. But who AI really is going to threaten are these people.
Here I was able to live my dream, man. I listen to your podcast all the time, and you gave me courage to get out there and do it.
But there's more to this. The most potent visual is Elon Musk. Truly, no wonder this guy is, and has historically been, scared of AI. His whole foundation crumbles with it. Again, it's forcing us to contend with that artifice, superficiality of self. With Musk, there are a few elements at play here. Try not to over-psychologize the poor guy, but Musk seems to embody that heavy type of insecure narcissism. Someone who spent over $40 billion to buy a social media giant for the sake of it and human engagement at large. I'm sorry, but if you think Elon Musk bought Twitter for the sake of quote-unquote free speech, ironically paywalling said speech, you're actually kind of an idiot. Sorry. Surrounded by yes men who take up the worship structure around them, it's easy to see how affirmation reinforces business decisions. But not only business decisions, it also validates them.
It's the internet. The memes belong to the internet.
Yeah, exactly. It's the whole point of a meme.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the translative of the pure information.
And typically you'll like the meme too that you'll post, and so people know where it's coming from.
Memes belong to people.
Yeah.
That's facts.
You create your own memes, though, don't you?
I saw it create some memes.
Your meme king is strong.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's two main things here. AI threatens the material structure of corporate business intellectuals, priests, if you will, whose job it is to strategize, think, and then externalize their knowledge through an organization. Play the pope of whatever business religion you're embedded in. AI potentially threatens that type of artificial value. And arguably most important, the real, core, raw human affirmation, the stroking of their egos in the role of executive corporate culture, the very reinforcement of their existence, hiding themselves from the traumatic core of the real, that Lacanian nothingness. This is why I think the biggest thing AI is a material threat to are those who benefit the most within postmodern service sector capitalism, the business strategist intellectuals of the world. I know we hear about AI through the lens of job loss, from people in IT, manufacturing processes, etc. I really don't see that anytime soon. But what I do see is the potential for the ideological supplanting of corporate culture. That, to more powerful parties involved, is much more scary. We gotta remember, these people are human. It's not all about profit incentive here. But in a material light, workers aren't out of the water yet. Me and you, most normal day-to-day people selling our labor power, will certainly experience newer threats to offload processes into cheaper avenues. But right now, those threats are nowhere near as severe as compared to gurus. Ironically, the people who won't shut the f*** up about how awesome ChatGPT is. The common story for the material end of capitalism thus far is to follow production at all cost, create more, do more, and in the end, consume more. We've seen through the ages of technological growth, production has skyrocketed. Yet, besides America's mid-20th century and post-New Deal economics, we've seen virtually zero increase in take-home pay, nor a decrease in working hours. Now, that sucks in its own right, but what does this tell us? Well, it tells us that technology so far hasn't really negated the need for real human labor. Resources, whether they are human or computational, will always be used. That's been the established pattern so far, and that's a strong pattern. AI may break that pattern at some point, but as it currently stands, business gurus are ironically in more trouble than skilled workers. Laborers, tradesmen, programmers, engineers, the like. It's here that the effect of AI in production that is a bit worrying. But the worry is really simple. It's that, well, AI, at its given moment, kind of really sucks at a lot of things. It harkens back to Fisher's concept of ontology and the state of the future in the Y2K era, which, in his eyes, the infamous phrase, "the future is dead." With neoliberalism laying the final nail in the coffin for art that could be simultaneously genuine and mainstream, there's a world where we may experience another 2000s-like decade, such as that, but from not only the advent of neoliberalism, but newer foundational artificial intelligence. So far, this video is likely different from what many would expect. The romanticized metaphysical dilemma of AI on some of the most questionable corners in YouTube. The point is that most of the things that AI is bringing forward isn't the romanticized notion of losing ourselves, or the state of corporate organizations being taken over by our new AI overlords. Sentient, suicidal, utilitarian computers hurling nukes across the world as to create an extinction event they deem morally necessary. Any genuine concern is much more subtle, which is ironically way more scary in the end. One such ex-researcher and engineer from Google highlights this dilemma with a clip on discussing potential sentience within AI.
Saying, no, this computer is not a person and does not have feelings and is not conscious. How do you respond to that?
It's not a difference in scientific opinion. It has to do with beliefs about the soul. It has to do with beliefs about rights and politics. As far as the science goes of what experiments to run and how to work at building a theoretical framework, because that's important, there is no scientific definition for any of these words. The philosopher John Searle calls it pre-theoretic. We need to do very basic foundational work to just figure out what we're talking about when we use these words.
Why does this matter? Why should we be talking about whether a robot has rights?
So to be honest, I don't think we should. I don't think that should be the focus. The fact is, Google is being dismissive of these concerns the exact same way they have been dismissive of every other ethical concern AI ethicists have raised. I don't think we need to be spending all of our time figuring out whether I'm right about it being a person. We need to start figuring out why Google doesn't care about AI ethics in any kind of meaningful way. Why does it keep firing AI ethicists each time we bring up issues?
Everything within AI, whether that be development or around the human foundation, resides around things pre-theoretic. We're already contending with foundations nowhere near clear to us as we often think. This is ironically why abject fear around AI is rather ideological. It revolves around commodified culture in Hollywood, and most of all, around what we think of things like autonomy, individuality, and self. When those things are exposed or challenged, fear is often the most common denominator. I find a strange dichotomy within AI. We've discussed so far how AI posits a post-humanistic view of self and society. How what we view as human nature, what's artificial, what's real, universal, is nonsense when you delve deeper. What I find, though, even outside of fear or ideological panic around AI, could be seen as something within the vein of humanism. Ironic, right? Given we're talking about AI. But this fits. What we decide to do, the things we have agency around, is still seen within the humanist lens in regards to AI. This part is particularly fascinating to me, and I quite like. The best part of any response to AI, I think so far, is the concern about a diminishing of self. How AI could potentially negate a value of ourselves. If anything, in the best case, this type of concern around AI could instill a type of newer appreciation for our type of complicated, varied intelligence, the weird intricacies of ourselves, and how we approach art. Concern about that type of abandonment in AI doesn't seem to be rooted in cynicism like abject fear to me. This matters a ton in my eyes. AI must be about us. Our response, in a way, should be rooted in a type of humanism, looking at something that's human as sublime, unique, and within genuine appreciation. This brings me back to the concept of Marcuse's aesthetic dimension. Marcuse saw aesthetics as particularly emancipatory, by way of how we interact with it. This concept is detailed in a video I did on Eros and Civilization, but Marcuse saw the form in which we appreciate art as something we should share across relationships and humanity. When you look at a painting, a piece of art, you don't look at it for how it can serve you, how you can utilize said human resource. You look at it for what it is outside of its service to you, or to society, or to the state, the party, or an organization. You are you, and that's good enough. You are good enough. It's here that we can tunnel the best parts of AI and how we can integrate it to help our subjective flourishing, our weird, varied humanity. We've seen numerous goals within AI that seeks to transcend humanity, that seeks to go beyond us, our measly selves. But I don't think there's anything to overcome amidst humanity. Nonetheless, our intricacies, any flaws, anything of the like, anything that deems humanity outside the scope of humanity that's transcendental is one rooted in ideology. The philosophy of AI is precisely that there is no philosophy. It's an embedded, absurd, deterministic thing we are dealing with. It's fear and nothingness. Infinity that AI forces us to contend with. Things we've hardly yet to make sense of. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate you making it to the end. This is a weird one. I actually finally showed my face. If you haven't seen a live stream or my social medias, this is probably the first time you're actually seeing me, so it's what I look like. Anyhow, I couldn't do this without the help of people on Patreon and everyone over there in the YouTube member section as well. So if you guys feel so kind, consider dropping a few dollars a month. It truly means everything for the channel. This channel would be dead without support. But to end this off, I have to give an extra special thank you to extra special patrons. Seriously, you three, Jay Roberts, Kate, Tona Kadene, I'm sorry, Tona, or however you pronounce your name. I notoriously butcher everything. Thank you so much. Seriously, you guys really do go above and beyond, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. Aside from that, I hope to see you all in the next video.